1, you've harmed the reputation of Parliament. 2, you've undermined the independence of the Speaker. 3, you've confined or restricted Parliament's ability to scrutinise the conduct of its own members. And 4, you've engaged in a cover-up, frankly. But the last 2 years I've sat on the sidelines and I've watched this same government. They've trashed transparency. They've trashed integrity. And now they're in the process of trashing parliamentary procedure. Enough is enough. Something has gone wrong with this government. I would say that it's time for this government to go.
So the federal government has blocked an investigation into the financial disclosures of former Attorney General Christian Porter. The Speaker of the House argued there was a case for the Parliamentary Privileges Committee to investigate the anonymous donors who partly funded Mr Porter's defamation case against the ABC. Geoffrey Watson is a director of the Centre for Public Integrity and he joins us now from Sydney. Geoffrey Watson, welcome. So what do you make of the government blocking the bid to have this investigated?
I think it's awful. I think it's really awful. There are 2 different awful aspects to it. You want me to go on? The first is to do with the process. It's terrible. And the second is to do with the substance of it, Joe. It's a really bad day.
So take us through the details of those 2 points.
Well, in terms of the process, I mean, people have pointed out, this is contrary to over 100 years of parliamentary practice. And it's an established practice for a good reason, because it's a good practice. The actions of the government in doing this are a real attack on the independence of the Speaker, apart from departing from the practice. That itself is a very damaging thing to do. And I might say it seems especially bad because this is a really excellent Speaker. Everybody raves. Finally, we've got a Speaker who seems fair and independent. And also, on the process angle, it's got this problem that it really limits parliamentary scrutiny over its own members. I don't know why the government would wish to do this. By the way, Joe, this is a government which holds itself out as conservative government. That's just not what they're doing. The conservative bedrock principle is to protect institutions, not to undermine them. Yeah, that's what's happened with the process. Do you want me to go on with what's wrong with the substance of it?
Indeed.
Well, the substance of it is really very, very bad. Mr Porter may have good personal reasons, at least in his mind, good personal reasons why he thinks he can't betray the confidence of those who backed him. Now, I don't agree with that. I don't think he should have taken the money. I just can't see how that's not inconsistent with his primary parliamentary duty. But nevertheless, Mr Porter might think that he should keep it a secret or keep their confidence. None of the other MPs share those obligations. They don't have to do it. I just don't understand, Joe, why the other MPs wouldn't say, well, we're freed of it. We want to get to the bottom of it. Joe, the transaction under which this money seems to have come to Mr Porter's benefit is really the adoption of a pretty crude legal device, which is designed for simple purposes. It's designed, obviously, to keep the donors secret, but it's also giving, if you like, some scope for Mr Porter to be able to refuse to reveal who the donors are. Now, why should the Parliament accept that? Why should MPs who are not bound by those same concepts of confidentiality accept it? In fact, I'm going to go a step further and say it really makes you wonder why the government has stepped in behind Mr Porter to protect these donors from becoming publicly known. Why can't we know? Joe, do you mind if I'm raving on a bit?
Well, I'll ask you, because the federal government has come out this morning and is arguing it's already asked the Privileges Committee for clarity on anonymous or crowd-funded donations, and this move by Labor was political. So the government's arguing it's asked the Privileges Committee for a broader look at this. Does it have a point on that or not?
No. those things are quite different. The thing is that the government can investigate those issues at a broader level. This is a specific inquiry. And you've got to remember that it's not political at all. I'll tell you why it's not political, because it went through the Speaker. The Speaker was the one who came in good conscience to an independent position that there was a prima facie case worth investigating. And that's not political. That's really quite important for all of us. And because it came through the Speaker, it's the opposite of political. It's quite independent of the political process. I don't buy that at all.
And so how does this reflect on the commitment of the Australian Parliament to transparency?
How does it reflect on it? It just shows that that is just unimportant to them. In fact, this government has step by step engaged in measures designed to crush transparency. That's been going on now since Mr Morrison announced that on water matters couldn't be discussed. That was way back in 2013. It's been downhill ever since then. This is a government opposed to transparency. Look at the silly device offered by just labelling the meeting of the First Ministers as the National Cabinet. It's rubbish.
And so what's the...
Joe, can I just make... There's something that gets my goat about this. People shouldn't lose sight of it. Everybody bandies around a figure of $1 million, but we don't know when the offer was made. If the offer was made before the settlement was effected, and if it included an indemnity in respect of Mr Porter's own costs and an indemnity against an adverse cost order, there might have been a promise of millions and millions of dollars involved. We're entitled to know those sorts of facts. Apart from anything else, this sets a bad precedent. If a blind trust is an effective device here to hide the source of money, why not in other instances?
Yeah. And so what's the danger if this specific matter of the donations to Christian Porter's legal costs goes unresolved?
Oh, well, I go back to the difference between process and substance. One, you've harmed the reputation of Parliament. Two, you've undermined the independence of the Speaker. Three, you've confined or restricted Parliament's ability to scrutinise the conduct of its own members. And four, you've engaged in a cover-up, frankly.
And does it effectively make a mockery of the Register of Interests?
Of course it does. But we're not going to be allowed to know. Joe, I've seen my role over the years in this respect as being an independent role. It's not party political role. And I've avoided that at all costs. But the last 2 years I've sat on the sidelines and I've watched this same government. They've trashed transparency. They've trashed integrity. And now they're in the process of trashing parliamentary procedure. Enough is enough. Something has gone wrong with this government. I would say that it's time for this government to go. This is a very black day for Australian parliamentary history yesterday.
And so you take your independence pretty importantly, so that's a pretty strong statement to have come out with.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't have said that. As soon as I heard about this, it really troubled me. I haven't come to that statement lightly.
What are you urging other MPs to do in terms of continuing to pursue this?
Well, I'm urging anybody who has got faith in the parliamentary system, those colleagues of the Speaker, Mr Smith, who've got faith in his good judgment, I'm urging them to cross the floor. Now, there are a number of people under challenge because they're in inner city seats. Mr Sharma comes to mind, Mr Zimmerman comes to mind. There are several like this who are saying, well, I don't agree with everything that the government is saying. Well, prove it. Why don't you just cross the floor on a matter of conscience like this? Come on, it's time to stand up for what you believe in. In fact, they just act as a herd.
Well, why is this issue of such importance that you think they should do that?
This has damaged Parliament. It's not just a day-to-day political issue. If you're going to defy the role of the Speaker in the way that they've defied the role of the Speaker here, they've crossed the line. You know, it's kind of funny. Every day I'm waking and thinking, oh, they've hit a new low. I hope we've got close to the bottom.
Okay, Geoffrey Watson, thanks so much for speaking to us this morning from Sydney.
Well, in a sense, it's my pleasure, but you can see that I'm a bit worked up about it. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, Joe.
Okay, Geoffrey Watson there from the Centre for Public Integrity.